guys, it's me Keyshawn and I'm here with Raj and this is episode 6 of the MindSet Podcast.
So today we're gonna start off talking about traveling. We're then gonna go to CES. We're gonna talk about Liverpool a little bit, and we're gonna finish off with some fan topics.
Cool.
The first topic we're gonna start talking about is travel, right? So when I thought about traveling, I was like, what is like the whole reason? Like, what when you go to another place, what is the first thing you notice, right? So the first thing that came to my head was the culture. So culture, just like a general thing, is like it's a word for the way of life of groups of people, meaning the way they do things, the way they live, the way they act around other people. There's so many different cultures. Like people are so different, but we don't even realize because, especially if you don't travel a lot, you don't really get to see that, right?
Yeah.
So culture, even in things like writing, religion, music, clothes, cooking, everything is encompassed in culture, right? So like you can see, I have a picture of India because that's our culture, right? So there's so many things that we do that are different from other cultures. So we see that firsthand just because we're Indian and then we've seen that, but a lot of people don't realize, right? So that's the first thing that I thought of when I thought of traveling. So the next thing is your personality, right? So I wanted to look up like how traveling affects your personality. So these are essentially, like in psychology, these are the big 5 parts of your personality, okay? So there's openness, which is the first one, which is how open you are to new ideas, to talking to new people, to new situations. Then what goes hand in hand with that is extroversion, which is also like how open you are to everything. Like how do you react outside your comfort zone, stuff like that.
Okay.
The third one, it's a little hard to say. It's neuroticism, I think.
Yeah.
So it's basically like they give you like a score, right? And if you're high on neuroticism, that means that you're more likely than the average person to be moody or to experience feelings like anxiety, worry, fear. So like being high in that is not a good thing, right? So it also is said that if you travel a lot, this is always low for you because you've seen so many different things and you've experienced like different ways of life, right? The fourth one is agreeableness. So like the picture that I chose is like a guy picking up another guy in the line. So like agreeableness is basically like seeing the other person's perspective, right? Because there's a lot of times that when someone does something, it's based on how they were brought up, and that goes back to their culture. So if you travel a lot, you see why other people make certain decisions, or why you can see what other people think, right? You can see their point of view. So agreeableness. And the last one is consciousness, which is just everything in your conscious together, basically self-discipline, ambitiousness, being organized, like different traits, right?
Yeah.
So these are like the big 5 things. And the article that I was reading said that when you travel, all 5 of these psychological almost barriers get broken down because you're put out way outside your comfort zone, right? Like
sure.
Yeah, when you go to a different country, it's very, especially living in America, you don't realize how different other cultures are. So like when you go, you realize like, wow, this is so much more different from back home. So you have no choice but to adapt. And like the human mind is such that like you will adapt, you know?
What about those people that are like, sorry to interrupt you, but like what about those people that are like, I guess like reluctant to adapt? You know, those people that are like very, I don't want to say spoiled, but like they don't really change their ways. Like my best example would be like when I went to England when I was like 14, a lot of people there thought like, oh, I wouldn't eat anything from like home because that's not what I eat. I always go out and eat. So like they thought that I wouldn't. Yeah. So like they didn't want me to put me out of my comfort zone. But in reality, I could adapt, right?
Yeah.
So like what about those people that actually can't adapt to that type of stuff?
Yeah, I mean, there's always like physical barriers, for I guess the biggest example is like food, because that's one of the biggest culture shocks. I've noticed that even when we went to England, right? I noticed that the food there is completely different from the food that you eat here, which I wouldn't at first I didn't think so, but like you realize that like their way of eating is completely different. So like you have to not have to, but you can adapt to it. But if it's like physical things like allergies or you're just used to food, I guess it would take time to adapt. Because I know like the perfect example is like when you go to India, right? 90% of people that go to India, even if you're from India, when you go back there, you get sick. Because the food there is so different. You could be eating the same thing, but like the minerals are different. Everything, the composition of the food is different, right? So you're just not used to it, so you get sick.
Yeah.
But over time, you just that becomes your comfort zone, you know. So I guess for people that can't adapt, it's a very short-term thing. Because if you live somewhere for long enough, you will adapt to whatever situation you're in.
Okay.
Yeah. So the next thing I wanted to talk about is us traveling, right? So we haven't traveled like an insane amount, but for our age, I feel like we've done a decent amount of traveling actually compared to the average person.
For sure. Honestly, like I always ask people like in college, like, oh, have you like, so you know, an icebreaker question is like, oh, have you traveled to any other countries or any other states? And like, I swear, I'm always that one person that has like a list of countries, whereas other people might say like, oh, they went to Canada, and that's it.
Yeah, so I thought traveling was like frequent. I thought people travel all the time, right? So when you, especially when there's icebreakers, good conversation starter. But when you start asking people like if they have traveled, you realize that not a lot of people travel, especially at the young age that we are at. Well, young but kind of young age that we're at. Traveling is not that prevalent. So I just want to talk about like the different impact it had on us and how it changed us in a sense, because we went when, especially the first time we went to UK, right? We were very young.
I think I was 14, literally.
Yeah, I think I was like 18, 17, right? So that like really changes how you think, because at that point you're super vulnerable to like influences.
Yeah.
Right? So now like I just want to talk about like how that affected us. So start off with you, because these are all the countries you've been to. So just go through them one by one.
So, I mean, I've been to UK, specifically England, Scotland, and Wales. I've traveled to New Zealand. I've been to India. I've been in Canada as well, though I don't really consider that like a new country because, like, you know, when you cross the border of Canada, it's not like, you know, anything different. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's not a huge culture shock.
Yeah. All these other places, like, you can tell that it's different.
Yeah.
But yeah. I've also been to, I mean, in the US, I've been to Florida, obviously. I went to Chicago, but I don't really consider that anything else because it's still like... Do you
notice the difference between like New Jersey and Florida or something?
I mean,
you lived in both.
Yeah, so New Jersey, people are a lot rougher. Like
yeah, it's just the Jersey way.
I guess the best example is like driving. No one will let you into a lane, but in Florida, if you put on your turn signal, people will slow down for you to merge in, which is very different from New Jersey. That's unheard of. And same thing with like Chicago. Chicago and like New Jersey, I'd say, are about the same.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's about it.
Okay, so what about New Zealand? How was that whole trip for you? Like, just explain the trip a little bit.
So when I landed in New Zealand, it felt very different. First of all, it was freezing there because I was so used to like the heat, because like our summer is their winter, right? So when I landed there, it was freezing. But like on top of that, like I swear to God, like my senses like heightened, because while I was just like sitting there, I felt like I could hear everything around me. But I guess that's just like my own body being more aware of my surroundings, because I'm in
like you went into like survival mode because you weren't at home.
Because I didn't know like, you know, what it was like here. Obviously, I like, you know, I'm with my friend and stuff, but like there's no guarantee that something like I'm gonna be safe. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's what I noticed. But then after like the week progressed, I felt like that instinctual trait sort of like lessened. So like I wasn't paying attention to everything as much. I was just like, you know, going through daily activities, walking around the place without like worrying about anything, because I'd gotten used to it. And I guess that comes to that part of like adaptability, right? Where like people adapt to things. And like the same thing over there, I ate whatever they made. I didn't ask them to like, you know, go out of the way and buy something for me and stuff like that. And like I'd say that was pretty cool, because I got to see their culture and like how like islanders work. That's what they're called. And like every day it's just like, okay, in the morning we're gonna go to the store, buy this, and then like we're gonna get the groceries for that day, and then the next morning they do the same thing.
Super fresh produce every day.
Yeah, all the time. And I thought that was like insane, because in the US we literally get like, my household gets like 5 gallons of milk for like the next 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So they never did that. Their fridge was always like empty.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
Yeah, and then so I don't know which India trip you want to talk about, because you did go to India a couple times, right?
Yeah, I mean, the most influential India trip would have to be
Yeah,
my
that's what I was.
most recent one.
Okay.
So, India, that was when it was my cousin's wedding. And
Mm-hmm.
I was just going there because, I felt like, why not? I might as well go there if it's my cousin getting married. And they invited me, so I should go.
Yeah.
So I went there, and I was basically living on my own, I'd say. I mean, I was with my dad, so he was basically taking care of me. But I didn't have, like, my brother or anyone else around me that was, like, my age, like my peers. So, like, I really got to, like, see what everything else was around me. Like, the people around me were just all adults over the age of, like, 40, right? So they couldn't, like, really understand me because I spoke English and they spoke Hindi or Gujarati. And I was just like looking at everything else. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So one of the biggest things that I actually enjoyed about India was like seeing what difference in culture there was. Because as a kid, when I went there, that never like stood out to me. It was
Yeah.
more like, okay, this is India and that's it. Like it's nothing special. You're just in another
Yeah.
country. But then
Yeah.
like while driving in a rickshaw and like all the like taxis and stuff, you see like these elephants crossing the road or like cows crossing the
Yeah.
road. You see kids playing cricket. You see
Yeah,
like where
especially
they
when you're
grew up
driving
in.
in India, it's a huge culture shock.
Yeah, like it's honestly insane. So Canada, I didn't see any like noticeable difference. So Canada, it was more like I went there. I went there about 3 times in my entire life, and the one that I remember the most would be when I went there to pick up my cousin from England. They were in Canada and they wanted to come to the U.S. So we went over there to bring them over. It wasn't a big deal or anything. It was literally just like a 5-hour drive, which isn't much, right? Or 8-hour
Yeah.
drive. For us, that's not much.
Yeah.
But when I went there, like the biggest thing that I noticed was their food, I guess, because they didn't have Dunkin' Donuts anymore. So like every morning we wouldn't get that. We would get something else called Tim Hortons.
Tim Hortons.
Yeah, and I love that.
There's a big French influence in Canada.
Yeah, sure. And like people were speaking French there too. Like when you went to the drive-through and stuff like that, and then like you tell them like, oh, you don't speak French, and they would like talk in English because they know English well too.
Yeah.
But besides that, there wasn't much of a noticeable difference. One thing that was different from like the U.S. is that there was a lot more open space. You get what I mean?
Okay. Yeah.
But yeah, besides that, there was not much of a difference from Canada to the U.S.
Canada to U.S. Okay.
Yeah.
So I skipped over Scotland and Wales because the stories that we have are from the same when we were together. So I'll just focus on it after we go over like these 3, right? So I'm gonna start with Netherlands and India, and then we'll go into like what we did together. So for Netherlands, I just went recently, last month. We went to Amsterdam for a couple days, and at first it was like, for me it wasn't like a huge culture shock because I've seen Europe before. So it was like more of the same, but the biggest culture shock for me is bicycles. They ride bicycles everywhere. There's so many bicycles everywhere. Like they have on the road, the bicycles have their own traffic lights, so that when people are riding, they can ride safely, right? And then another thing about Amsterdam that really shocked me was they had like canals in the middle of the town. So essentially, you'd be like, there's bridges everywhere, and like there'd be houses on each side. You go over the bridge, and there's just water in the middle. And there's people just going through the water like they're traveling like in a car.
I know that's like very prevalent in like Italy, like Venice. Yeah.
So for me, that was like a very big thing. And another thing is just how chilled out people were, right? So like especially living in like New Jersey, being so close to New York, like the work days are till like 5, 6, 7 p.m. People get home, they do whatever, they chill. But in Amsterdam, even in the middle of the week, the work day pretty much ended around like 3, 4 o'clock. Everyone was out, and it was just like it was like it was like a mix of locals and tourists. Obviously, if you went to like the more touristy areas, it was 90% tourists, but like if you're just walking around normally, you can't even tell if like you're in a area or if you're in like actual place. Compare that to New York City. If you go anywhere near Times Square, you know it's all tourists. You
Yeah.
know, there's like designated areas like where tourists go just to check it out.
Yeah.
But Amsterdam is very mixed in.
Do you feel like that, when you said that everyone, like, around a certain time, everyone walks out and it's like a mix of locals and tourists, do you feel like that's like a Amsterdam type of thing, or is that like more of a European influence? Like it's
I
just
don't
all
think it's
over
a
Europe?
Well, the only two places I've been in Europe are England and Netherlands and Scotland, Wales.
Hmm.
But to me, it felt like an only Amsterdam thing because I haven't really seen that like London and stuff. You know?
Yeah.
But for me in Amsterdam, it was just a complete different culture shock. And like you said, there's always that thing in the beginning where you're almost like always making sure like everything's like safe, so to speak. Just being like, oh, make sure everything's okay, you know, because you're in a place that you're so far from home. You don't know how anything works. Everything's in a different language. Everything's in so like it's so hard to adapt to it.
Yeah.
But by the second day, we were like, because there was only two of us, we were pretty much like, it's like we lived there. We knew how to navigate. We knew how to get where we wanted to go.
How
But
long
it
were
was
you
just
there in
like
Amsterdam?
3 days.
Okay.
Yeah. So the first day it was 3 or 4, I believe 3, maybe 4 days. But the first day it was really rough because once we got there, first of all, when we got out of the airport, the person that got the Airbnb told us to take a bus, like 357, that numbered bus. So we took that bus, and then like I'm checking on the maps on my phone. I'm like, dude, we're going farther away from the city. And then like 30 minutes into the ride, I'm like, okay, absolutely nowhere near
Okay.
Amsterdam anymore. So we were pretty much going the wrong way for 30 minutes in a foreign country with our bags, right out the airport, looking straight like tourists, you know. So it was a little nerve-wracking at first. But other than that, once we got into the city and we got like used to how everything worked, because the tram is really big there, then it got easy for us, I guess.
Yeah.
So one thing that I think it teaches you is like how to adapt, like
Yeah.
you said before, because it's so different. Like being in a city where nothing is in English and there's just you and another person and you pretty much you can do whatever you want. It's like it's there's like a learning curve to it, you know?
Yeah, for sure. It's
And
almost
when you're
scary, you know? Like you're like
it
you
was
don't know
almost
where to
scary,
start.
especially the first day for me, I was like, wow, like we're in a foreign country now, no words, we don't understand any words on the bus. Like a lot of people in that area didn't speak English because it was outside of Amsterdam.
Hmm.
And we were just like, dude, we're lost. You know, we had nowhere to go.
Was there no
But-
like Uber or anything like that?
No,
Yeah.
so we ended up Ubering
Oh, okay,
back
okay,
to Amsterdam because we were like, yeah, we're not taking the bus. Like, we don't know how this works.
okay.
Even the bus driver like didn't really speak English, so it was tough. But once you adapt to it, it's not that bad.
Makes sense.
For India and Canada, you pretty much went over the main points on like, especially India, because to be honest, I didn't like going to India. I still to this day like don't
Enjoy
want
it.
to specifically go to India. Be like, oh, let's go there for vacation. But it is important to notice the culture, right? To like
Yeah.
accept the culture. Because I was actually talking to this about my dad. I was talking to my dad about this, right? So me and you are first generation kids in America,
Yeah.
right? Like our parents weren't born here,
Mhm.
so we're first gen. But so now imagine in our family line like the fourth or fifth generation, okay? So because are you gonna teach your kids like all the culture and stuff?
I mean,
Because like we don't necessarily know everything, right? Like when we move into a new house, we have a ritual, right?
yeah,
So like we don't necessarily know all these things. So our kids will probably know just because they have enough family members around that know it very well.
yeah,
But now just extend that further. Think about our grandkids or our great grandkids. Like who's gonna teach them, right? So that's why I think going to India and learning the culture is important. Just because I feel like we need to pass it on.
yeah. So I actually talked to my cousin's Puneet, right? And like he was telling me how our grandfather and his dad had said that our grandfather's generation is like the generation that like built up the culture, you know what I mean? Because they lived in India the entire time, and like he built up the village and like, you know, built the house that we lived in the village, right? And then
Mhm.
like the generation that maintains that culture is our parents, right? So they're the ones living in that house, and they're trying to pass it on to us and then the generation that destroys it is us, you know? Like,
Yeah.
we're the generation that, like, is completely different from everything else, and we're, like, almost essentially destroying what they made, which isn't technically a bad thing. I don't want to, like, you know, portray it as a bad thing. It's just, like, you know, we're raised differently. It's a different type of, like, you know, timeline, a different era. So, like, that's what, like, they said. So, like, I do think maintaining culture is, like, a really big thing, because if you don't have culture, you don't have, like, a background for yourself. Like, you know, you don't have, like,
it's almost a sense of identity.
Yeah,
you know?
it's like a starting point for you, you know?
Yeah.
Like, when people ask me, like, oh, where are you from? Like, I say, like, oh, I mean, I was born in America, but I'm Indian, you know?
Yeah.
Because my parents were both born in India. Like, that's the first thing I say. But yeah. So, I would say that, like, I would try to pass on the culture to our kids, but I feel like it's going to be really hard, considering that I don't know as much as, like, my parents do.
Yeah.
And maybe my parents would, like, you know, fill that gap for me, where, like, if I do have kids,
they will for our kids.
Yeah, as long as they're, like, you know,
past that, it's like up in the air, you know?
Yeah, as long as they're still there, they will pass it on, but once they're gone, it's like, how can we pass it on? It would literally have to be, like, a lot of, like, self-work for them to learn everything about it. Or maybe, like, some outside family influence, like, maybe they meet a priest and, you know, they learn like that.
Yeah. Another thing is, like, you learn so many values, like, some things that I consider to be, like, crazy or, like, normal, like, in terms of, like, family, right? That comes from the culture that we grew up in, which is, like, the Indian culture, you know? Because there's, like, a lot of things that, like, something as simple as, like, when we were in high school going out with your friends, right? Like, the difference between Indian culture or Asian culture even compared to, like, the culture that kids grew up here are, like, vastly different, right?
Yeah.
Because I also had friends that were not Indian, and the lives that they lived in high school for the majority of high school was very different from the life that I lived. But that almost, like, shaped my personality. So I think culture goes deeper than just, like, a sense of pride, you know? It, like, really, it molds your personality as a whole. Because the values are always different between, like, like growing up in India or growing up here.
Yeah. One thing that I actually want to mention to you and ask you about is something that someone commented in one of my YouTube videos before. It was Epic Flame 88, and he asked me, did I ever go on the trains in India? Because, like, you know, it's a whole different experience from, like, going on trains over here. Obviously, me and you have done both. We've been on a train to New York City over here, and I don't know if you've been on a train in India.
Yeah, I have.
You have. So what's that experience like?
Okay, so it's night and day difference in terms of, like, actually going on the train. First of all, like, let me just give you an example. Like, if the doors open here, the train's not gonna move. Right?
Yeah.
Like, they make sure that the door is closed.
Yeah.
In India, it's completely different. They don't care if the door's closed. I mean, a lot of trains don't even have doors. It's just, like, the handle.
It's a handle and you walk in. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not like there's no, like, limit per se on the train itself. You know, there's no, like, this many people, once it passes this many people, you can't, because you just can't. There's just too many people in India to be trying to do that.
Yeah.
So even stuff like that, like, the train is super, super packed, right? So, like, I don't know. That's, like, the differences between trains here and there. I don't know if it does anything culturally. I'm not sure. I don't think so. But I think that's just a matter that there's just a lot of people there compared to here, even though we think there's a lot of people here.
Yeah, I mean, India is the second most populated country in the world, right? Right behind China.
Yeah.
So there's definitely a lot more people. And, like, it's so much more congested, you know what I mean? Like, especially, like, Mumbai and, like, the popular cities. Like, it's way more congested. So I guess that makes sense why trains are like that. But I'd say in my personal experience, like, I've been lucky enough that my parents have always bought, like, a first class ticket, which sounds really spoiled. But, like, there were moments where, like, you know, we had to make do with what we had, and, like, we'd sleep in, like, so it's called a sleeper cart, right? Where, like, they have a bunch of, like, bunk beds, and, like, you put them down, and, like, you can sleep on the top, middle, or bottom. And, like, I always slept on the top just because I didn't care or anything like that, and I was cool with, like, getting up there because I was, like, really agile back then. But even then, like, you'd see that there's so many people just, like, sitting outside and waiting to find, like, a bunk to sleep in. Like my dad was one of those people that he gave up like his bunk to me so that I could
Yeah.
sleep, and then like he would just sit outside and like wait, like literally at
Yeah.
the entrance of the train where like people walk in, and he would just
Yeah.
sit there and wait until the day passes. But
Yeah.
yeah, that was my experience with trains.
Yeah, so I'm not sure if there's any cultural impact, but it's like an experience, it's definitely different.
All right, so Tacos BI said, culture sometimes give you morals, and to like different people, it affects us in different ways. And I feel like that's
Yeah.
really true, because I feel like if I didn't have this like background of India, I wouldn't have that sense of like family within me, because like
Yeah, that's one thing that I noticed a lot, especially with I mean, with our family in general, I feel like our family as a whole, even though like I'm from the other side of the family, we're still so close, right? It's like we always hang out, we always talk, but there's a lot of families that I know that like see their cousins like once a year, like on Christmas and Thanksgiving, and that's it, you know? So that sense of like family definitely comes from the culture of India, I think.
not just that, but like, you know, the way that we were like shown what India is like, you know, like, so I have other Indian friends, right? And like one of their things that they always complain about is like, oh, my cousins, like I don't really like them that much, like we barely talk or anything like that. But like, you know, what we were shown in India is like, you know, everyone's family, right? No matter what. Like you
Yeah.
literally go down the street and you like call everyone your uncle. Like
Yeah,
it's
pretty
a different
much.
thing, right?
Yeah.
So like we were shown that like everyone that's Indian is your family. You know, you treat them like
Yeah.
family. You treat people that you meet like family.
Yeah.
But like
So
other people that are
actually
Indian, yeah,
that actually brought up a funny point, right? So, the village that I live in India, right?
Mhm.
So it's a pretty big village, right? And obviously we're not related to 90% of the people that live there. But when I was in India last time, anywhere I would go, I would call someone an uncle or
Yeah.
auntie, like because they were like considered your uncle or your aunt because you guys were from the same area. Now,
Yeah.
if you apply that to here, right? Just as an example, I can't go to my neighbor and call my neighbor uncle, right?
Yeah.
Because that's like it's just a very weird. Here, it's not not normal, but it's not socially accepted. Not even it might be socially accepted, but it's not the norm.
Yeah.
Like people don't go around calling their neighbors uncle and aunt. So I guess that's one of the main cultural differences that you would only realize if either you're from India or you go to India. So the reason I have Scotland and Wales here is because we went there when we first went to UK, right? The first year. So the reason I brought up Scotland is because when we first went to Scotland, I don't know if you remember, Andy Murray was playing.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was Wimbledon, but he's from Scotland, right? And he was in the thing. He was in a tennis match. So there's like a little town center. It's surrounded by mountains, like the whole place, right? That little village that we were in.
Edinburgh.
And in Edinburgh. We were in Edinburgh, and there's a town center. So that's where all the big stores are. It's basically like an outdoor mall. It's like a long strip. They had a giant screen there, right?
Yeah.
So they were playing the match live on that screen, and there was about, I can't even imagine, there was so many, probably more than 3,000 people there, right? In that small area, watching the match.
Yeah.
And like supporting Andy Murray. And that's something I've never seen, because even in America, like say you made it to a football team, right? In America. It's not like every time you play, we would go to the local town center here in New Jersey and watch you play, right? And that sense of like pride in that village in Edinburgh was something that like I never saw before growing up here, And it almost gave me like a sense of pride towards not just my own country, but just like people in general. Like, wow, look how crazy it could get if you just rally behind like one person,
It's sick, honestly. Like I love it. It's such
so
a great feeling.
It almost gave me like pride for my own country, just seeing that, because I'm like, wow, like I've never seen that before, like them getting behind one person. And so this is what we were doing, right? In Wales, we went spelunking, cave diving. So for me, this was one of the craziest experiences I've ever had in my life.
Honestly, for me, by far the best experience that I've ever had in my life.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
I've never done anything like this ever. I mean, I was only like 15 at the time, right?
Yeah.
But even at this age, I've never done anything like this again,
Yeah, because look at do you remember there was something just where we had to go across?
This
and
is
then,
actually...
we were hugging the wall, and then we were like connecting our... So for me, I was, first of all, I used to, when I was younger, scared of it, right? I wouldn't try anything new. Or I was scared of heights. I was scared of roller coasters. I was scared of everything, right? That involved like any type of activity. But after I did this, for some reason something clicked in my head. I was like, wow, this is the craziest thing I've ever done, and it was scary, but it was still so much fun. So after we did this, I had a completely different mindset on trying new things. Because if someone came to me and was like, oh, do you want to go cave diving? I would never have said yes, right? But after this, it taught me that you should never judge an experience just on like a name or what you've heard. Like you should try everything out yourself and see what it is.
Yeah.
You know?
So like, could I talk about like what we did exactly?
Yeah, that's
so,
what
like,
I was gonna go into, but you explained it.
So like when we started off, like we first like drove up a mountain and then like started climbing up it once we couldn't like drive anymore. And when we got to the entrance of the cave, it was literally like an AC blowing cold air at you, right? So
yeah, like a giant open door.
Yeah, and we entered that mine shaft. It was literally like a mine shaft that you see in like movies or like Minecraft, I guess. But you saw these tracks that go down into the mine shaft, and you see like the little like tunnel entrance that you need to like go down, right? Like it's a staircase down. And then there were points where like they had to set up equipment where you would like rappel down almost, right? You'd literally have a person like hold you down, like tie something to a rock, and then like you'd slowly go down that trail.
Yeah, I found a picture of it, just like this.
Literally just
Except
like that.
The only difference is it was pitch dark.
Yeah, you couldn't see anything. The only light that you had was from your helmet that they gave you, so that you wouldn't like hit your head on the ceiling and hurt yourself. But after that, there were things like where we would be like, I don't know what that term would be called. It's like where you walk along the side of a wall, like you're on, I guess.
We were scaling from one. It was basically from one platform to another, but there was only like a thin layer against the wall that you could walk across.
It's like you're basically hugging the wall and you're walking left to right. And if you move back from that wall, you're literally gonna fall and like drop like 20, 30 feet and possibly die. But
yeah, because I remember we kicked the rock down and we were waiting for the rock to like land, and we didn't hear it for a pretty long time. Like,
yeah, it took a while. It took a long while. And like you'd look down with like your helmet, so like you'd shine the light from your helmet down, and you wouldn't see anything. This picture is exactly what like we did. That small hole from the top, you would be going down the rope down the side, and like people would be at the bottom to like sort of like, you know, help you land properly.
Yeah.
There were other things that we did, like we so once we got to the end of the trail, one thing that we found at the end of the trail was like old newspapers from back then, because it was like a, what type of mine was it? Slate mine?
Yeah, I think so.
So like
there was also this like zip lining, like you would have to zip line part of the cave to the other.
Yeah, we even had lunch down there at one point, I think, or like a water break or whatever, where we'd eat food. That was great.
Do you remember there was also a part where like you would go into the water and it was like under.
Yeah, that's what I was just about to talk about. So now once we got to the end of the trail where we like saw the newspapers like from back then, I think it was around like the 1840s or 1850s where they got those newspapers from. You know, from like coal miners that were down there before. And like you'd see coal from back then too. So like they had all these like artifacts, I guess you could say. But once you got to that point, that was like the end of the trail, right? So now there were two options. You could go back the way that you came, right? Which is like, you know, there were two instructors. One person would take you back the way you came, and then the other instructor would go back from like a different path. And the other path involved going underneath the cave. So like the reason that you couldn't move further down the path is because of like rain. When it rains over there, the water drips into the cave system, and like it keeps going further down and down, right, until it gets to the point where like it's filling up the bottom of the cave system, right? And like there was a point where like you could see that the water level was there, and then you could see how the cave is supposed to go down, right? Literally just like this picture.
Yeah, it was exactly.
But like you couldn't see that person's head. It was up to the ceiling of that cave. So we had to go into the water and like dive in and resurface on the other side of that wall where they set up like another path up. And like that involved like scaling the entire wall, like literally taking a rope and like climbing up, because like it was so intense. I loved it. It was great.
Yeah. So something like this like really gave me a love for like adventuring. Like after this, I would love going hiking. I wanted to try all these crazy things, and I don't think I would have liked that if I did initially do this.
Hmm.
You know, it was so like out of the normal for me that I was like, wow, I want to do something like that type of adventure more. Like I should try new things.
Yeah. Epic Flame Idiot just asked, would you guys go skydiving, scuba diving? I'm guessing bungee jumping as well. That's what he had just
Yeah,
asked.
so that's another thing. So before we did this, if you asked me, I think I would literally be like, no, I'm not gonna do it. But now that's one of the things I want to do so bad. I want to go skydiving. Bungee jumping's I like bungee jumping. It's not that high on my list. I
Hmm.
just don't. I just think skydiving is so much more fun. Like jumping out of a plane, you only see that in movies, you know.
Yeah.
So for me, that's like top of my list, skydiving, which hopefully I do around probably this summer.
Yeah. So like I definitely want to go skydiving. I feel like bungee jumping is also fun because I mean, like imagine jumping from like a 300-foot cliff and then like like you're about to hit the ground but then like it pulls you
And
back
you
up.
stop right away.
Yeah. That's insane. That's scary, but like I want to do it. Other things like
Yeah.
scuba diving, I definitely want to do. Like, I love swimming and stuff like that. I'd like to see
Yeah.
what like marine life
Yeah, I
is.
definitely want to do scuba diving, even though I don't really know how to swim. Scuba diving is something that I really want to do. Any last thoughts for like traveling and how it impacts your personality?
I would say anyone that gets the chance to travel, they should.
Yeah, definitely. It opens up like it because you get so far out of your comfort zone. I think I think everyone should do it just
You-
because you learn things about yourself that you wouldn't know
Yeah,
before,
you develop
know?
a different part of yourself that wouldn't
Yeah.
have been developed unless you did whatever you did. Moving on, we're going to be talking about CES, which is Consumer Electronics Show, which happened in Las Vegas recently.
Yeah, so it just happened this week or last week. I think last week. It happened last week. So this is like the first big electronics show of the year, right? Like they have for gaming, they have E3, which is primarily for video games, but CES is primarily for like the like bleeding edge technology. So like Samsung was there, cars are there, TVs, speaker, like any type of technological thing you can think of is there.
Mhm.
So these are just a couple of things that I found like insanely cool from there. So I haven't written down here, but I'm actually just gonna tweet from MKBHD because he has a good list that he made for CES.
Okay.
So when he first got there, he saw this, which was a giant OLED TV, but it was on the ceiling from LG.
Is it
So one
curved?
thing, yeah. So one thing this really tries to prove is that you can curve TVs.
Okay.
Right? Because this is all made of TVs. So curved technology is still alive. I'm not sure if it's still big. Because there was like a whole thing for curved TVs recently,
Yeah.
but people don't really use them anymore.
I have a
This thing that I've
question,
done-
just completely
Yeah,
unrelated to this, but like sort of related. What is the point of like a curved TV or a curved monitor?
So like the
Because-
view, so okay, so when a TV is flat, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you're looking at it from, say you're looking at it from like a 30-degree angle on the left side.
Mhm.
So for a lot of TVs, that it's hard to maintain the color, as if you were staring straight at it from the front,
Okay.
right? So a curved TV would make it so that you can watch it from an angle and it wouldn't get rid of any of the colors. Like the colors stay for you, no matter what angle you're watching from.
Okay.
Yeah. So he also found this 49-inch Odyssey G9 monitor. So it's a 5K monitor from Samsung. So if you can see this, so I guess what they're going for is, you know how everyone has like dual monitor setup?
Yeah.
So I guess they're trying to make it so that you can only use one instead of you having to buy two. So I don't really use dual monitor or a dual monitor setup, so I'm not sure how this would be, but how would it be for gaming? How do you think it would work out for gaming?
I mean,
Something like this.
personally, so I feel like, no offense, but it would be a flop almost because a lot of things for like, for you don't want a game to be so spread out that you can't see like one corner to another. You want to have everything in your vision without needing to like stress or stretch yourself, right? And like in terms of streaming, I feel like this would also fail because people that have a dual monitor setup for streaming or like a triple monitor setup, they literally broadcast that monitor, everything on that monitor. So they put their game on that monitor and then like let their other monitor have their like overlay, right? So that they can see what it looks like. And I feel like doing this, unless you can split the monitor in half and like, you know, choose one side to be gaming, choose the other side to be like, you know, streaming, it won't work. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah. What if you use half the monitor for gaming and then kept the sides for your stream?
Yeah, that would work then. Like, I feel like if that's possible with this monitor, then that would entirely work. Like, that would be like,
that would essentially defeat the purpose of a dual monitor.
Yeah.
Because you could still have.
So, like, that's why I feel like maybe I don't know enough. Maybe I don't know enough about this monitor, but I feel like if it was used for streaming, it just wouldn't work unless you can split it so that a certain part is gaming and then the other part is like, you know, streaming.
Yeah. Okay, so moving on from that, we have in the booth they had a car, right? So the crazy part about this is that Sony doesn't make a car. They're not going to produce this car. They're never going to sell this car. But they just made it because they produce a lot of tech, right? So like they just decided to make this they decided this was the best way for them to showcase what their technology could do. So like this is a fully functional car, by the way. So it has quad motors, 200 kilowatt hour battery. It goes 0 to 60 in 4.6 seconds. So these are very like Tesla-like numbers. Obviously, I'm not sure if they can put into production like Tesla. I'm sure there's a lot of steps before they could do that. But this is just for them to show that they have the technology to do something. Like they're just trying to showcase their technology to other companies. Yeah, I'm assuming to other tech companies. But yeah, for me this was cool because for a company like Sony to make a car and not even sell it, I think it's crazy.
Do you think the car is functional? Like if they like
the car's fully functional.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah. But they're never gonna sell it. And the crazy thing is, this is one of the better looking cars too.
It definitely it looks sleek, very sleek.
Yeah. This is okay. Hold on. This is a camera, so I'm not gonna. I don't know camera.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is the Mustang Mach-E, right? So this is their first all-electric car, and it's crazy that they're putting the Mustang line on it. You know, Mustang is their most famous thing. So for them to push it so heavily is big. And not even that, not only, but it's on the lower end in terms of like affordable electric cars. Yeah. So they're trying to start off 45K. And like it says here, they intend to ship it next year, but he's not sure if they can actually put into production and how it would work. Because the biggest thing with electric cars now is to charge the car, right? So it's like Tesla opens up their chargers so that other companies can use it too. But the thing is, other companies don't want to use it. They want to have their own. So that's like the big issue where like, how would you charge your car? Like, is it going to be different from other Tesla things? It's like the problem Tesla had before they had all these superchargers, like in different areas. Because I know near us we have one at Menlo Park. Yeah. There's a Tesla supercharger. So this is the same problem these cars have, because if they work all electric, it's like, how am I going to charge it if I'm not home, you know, or if I go somewhere? Yeah. So I guess that's what they're dealing with now too. That's the biggest setback they have. But I don't know. If I was making a car, I would use Tesla superchargers just because it's already there. But I'm sure they would have to pay Tesla whatever amount to get the approval to use their charging techniques.
So I have a question for you. Do you feel like electric cars are what car companies are going to be pushing now more?
So I think that's what they should push. Okay. But there's still a huge part of the car industry that still pushes for like not diesel, but like gas engines, because there's always this like divide. They think that you can't get. So the myth always was before, you can't make an electric car as powerful as like a gas car. Yeah. So Tesla came out and they completely blew it out of the water because they have they can make the fastest car that's legally allowed, right? Yeah. And they obviously are all electric. So that's out of the window now. And especially because of all climate problems, I think that cars should push electric cars, because the amount of damage that you would save to the ecosystem by driving electric cars is huge. That's why it's becoming such a big thing now, especially affordable electric cars. Every time there's a new technology, it's always expensive, right? Like if you look at 4K TVs, they're still kind of expensive now. And then we'll talk about later, but they also have 8K TVs now, which is like super expensive to get one. But I remember a time even when like 1080p TVs were like $5,000-$6,000 to get one.
Yeah.
So when the new technology comes out, it's always expensive. But now you can see with Tesla getting their cars cheaper and Ford coming out with theirs, and like I think it'll only be a matter of time before like Honda, Toyota have like fully electric versions of like cars, just like the Civic or something like that. It's only a matter of time, and that's even good because you need that competition. Because right now Tesla could do whatever they want. We're just lucky that they're like semi good in terms of pricing and stuff, because Elon Musk just doesn't think like that. So we're like semi lucky. But even if say Honda makes like a Civic that's like fully electric, that's cheaper than the Tesla Model 3, the Model 3 won't have a choice but then to get cheaper, right? So always need competition.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do think that that's the future, and the sooner we get there, the better. But I'm not sure if like it'll get there, just because oil is so big and oil companies make so much money. You know, it's such a big pull. So that transition could take hundreds of years.
All right. So
but it's like it's taking big strides.
Okay. So Epic Flame asked, quick question: in order to get an electric car, is a garage required? I don't think so.
It's not, especially because Tesla does this thing where if you need like a supercharger or if you need a charger at your house, they'll literally come install it for you, right? But the thing is, it would be good to have a garage, because like if you did have a garage, you could obviously park the car inside and charge it in there. But like for Tesla, they have a charging station at Menlo Park, so that's like the same as us going to the gas station. You would go there, park your car, charge it up. But that's another thing that you would have to. So they supercharge for like 30 minutes, and it gives you like 50% of your tank back. So that's another thing that's different. That's like a disadvantage almost. That if you don't charge it every day from home, then charging it only at super stations would be a little tough.
Yeah. He also asked, what are your favorite car companies as of now? So for me, I'd say Tesla and Chevrolet, just because I like Camaros, and like, you know, I really want that as my first car. Hopefully I can get that. But and Tesla is just because Elon Musk, I love him as a guy, you know?
Yeah.
He's amazing. Innovation.
Yeah. For me, BMW has to be top of the list. Just because I don't know, driving wise, it's so nice to me. Like the way it drives, I feel like it's nicer than any other car. And I also think that Tesla obviously has to be there, because I want my future car to be a Tesla. Like the Model X is like my dream car. I think it's so sick, like an SUV that's fully electric, and it's super advanced, right? And like it has like every technology you can think of.
Yeah.
It can drive itself, and not even that, like it's like a phone where if you want to update the car, they literally send out like a firmware update. You update your car, and then it's got like the newest features.
Yeah.
Like you don't see that in cars in general, right? I also like I'm a big fan of pickup trucks. I'm not sure why. I really like pickup trucks. So I would say like Ford, I guess they make the F-150, which is like the most popular pickup truck. And Jeeps.
Okay.
So I guess those are like the big four. I'm not sure.
Okay.
But this new set, have you seen the new Cybertruck?
I have. It looks like a triangle, right?
Yeah, so to me, like obviously a lot of people don't like the design, but to me it's like crazy. Like I would drive something like this. It looks so insane. Look at it.
I mean, I don't know about that.
It's like completely unconventional from what a pickup truck should look like.
Yeah. Is there?
Yeah.
Okay. It does look like a triangle. If you just take the top half of it, like if you cut off just the bottom, it literally looks like a triangle. Which makes sense. Like, you know, they said that they want to go for like safety, right? A triangle is the most supportive structure that there is in engineering. I'm pretty sure.
Wow. Engineering knowledge.
Yeah. Because like a square, if you I don't know I won't explain it, but
yeah,
he knew that, I'm pretty sure, and that's why they made it like this.
Yeah, so like these are like the concept of what they thought it was gonna look like. They thought it was gonna be just a regular pickup truck, but it came out looking like this. So I mean, they went for a bold statement and they did it. So that's good.
Wow.
Moving on from that, there's another car. It's the Rivian R1T, right?
Okay.
So the thing about this is that it's the closest Tesla car, not the closest competitor to Tesla that they have. Like, this is supposed to be in production at the end of this year, but they're not sure. But they also made a pickup truck. Like I'm not sure if it's a full-fledged pickup truck, but it's a pickup truck. But this is what people thought Tesla was gonna do.
Yeah, it almost
right?
looks like that, like the concept model of the pickup truck for Tesla.
So another interesting thing is obviously when the car's all electric, the whole engine is at the bottom. It's like those toy cars that we had before. When you turned it around, it was the whole bottom was black and it had like the thing, like a solid thing. That's basically how it works. So they have new places to put space everywhere on the car. So like you can see, this normally is where a lot of the engine would be, right? A lot of parts of the engine would be, but because it's an electric car, you just have extra space, so you could just throw it in there. But yeah, this is the closest like to production. So they, like it says, they're gonna ship this year, so we'll see how it is compared to Tesla.
Okay.
Another cool thing I saw is just there's a company called OnePlus, so they made a functioning piano from all just like phones. So I'm not sure if this means anything.
I just noticed that. I was like, I was wondering why that looked so weird, and then I realized after you said phones, I looked at it like closer, and you can see that it literally is.
Each one is a phone.
That's insane.
So obviously this takes a lot of processing power, and I'm not sure how they did it, but this is just like the level of technology that even phones can reach now. Like you literally have like supercomputers in your hands.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's just like the future of phones.
Okay.
So one of these, so like when you go to CES, there's all kind of crazy stuff. So we were talking about like AI and like automation before, like a couple episodes ago. So they had this ping pong robot called Omron. So it basically play you. So the craziest thing about this robot is that it's emotionally intelligent, right? So what this means is that it'll look at how you react to how it's hitting the ball, right? So say the robot hits the ball at you too hard and you miss, and you get pissed.
Yeah.
Right? The robot will, I shouldn't do that. So it won't do it the next time. So it's adding that layer to AI that hasn't been there before. You know, like we were talking about before.
Mm-hmm.
So I found this interesting because they can make so the technology is already very, very far. If it can detect that you're unhappy and it won't do it again, that's like a level of computing that's a lot higher than the standard that we're at now.
So this robot let him have the point, basically, at this hit.
Not let you have the point, but if the robot hit it too hard and he missed and he got pissed off, the robot would make sure that it doesn't do it again.
Okay.
But yeah, like you said, I got really mad, so it let me have the point. So
Wow.
yeah, just things that it learns things like this is nuts to me. This is like the future of technology, basically. Because imagine this in like cars or TVs and your phones, which is like, imagine you're talking to Siri and Siri knows that you're pissed off, right? And then it's almost like a therapist in your hand.
Yeah, really, it really is. I was just thinking like then you'd literally be having like a back and forth conversation at that point. Because like right now when you're talking to Siri, it's like once the response is done, you can't like continue the conversation, right? Mm-hmm. It's like over after you ask a question to it, and then it responds. But with like an emotionally intelligent AI, it would literally be progressing forward into a conversation with you, which is sort of insane.
Yeah, that's like, but that's like the level that we're at now, because these things are showing up in these shows means that they're past the research and development stage, to the point where they're like trying to get it into production, right? Because the steps are like they're first going to R&D, and then once they internally test it, they'll bring it to like trade events, shows, stuff like this to like test it publicly. Once they test it publicly, that's when they'll get like responses, and they'll try to make it into a real product. So the fact that we're already seeing it in shows means that we're really far along in the process.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else with this convention? Wow, there's a lot.
So TVs, I think this is the last thing.
Okay.
Yeah, so TVs. So CES mainly became like a TV thing, right? Where all the companies, Samsung, LG, Sony would come, they would bring their TVs, right? So the thing that TV companies have been focusing on for the past couple years now is getting the bezel as small as you possibly can, right? You just want like just a TV. So Samsung this year has this TV where if you can see, there's literally no bezel to this TV. I can't see it.
That looks
and it's so thin to the point where the speakers are on the side of the TV because there's no place to put them on the front. And this is an 8K TV, which obviously there's no use now because nothing that you watch, or maybe 2% of the things that you watch could be in 8K.
Yeah.
Right? We don't even have 4K channels yet on TV, which we're starting to see, but it's not prevalent. So 8K is like a super future-proof technology, but that's what CES is for.
Okay.
And there was one last thing. Okay, so this is the Samsung Sarah. So this is another TV that they're making. As you can see, it's slightly bent sideways. So the crazy part about this is, I guess they realize that a lot of people record their videos vertically.
Mm-hmm.
So depending on what you're watching, the TV will change directions.
Wait, what?
So like, yeah. So if you're watching something horizontal, it'll obviously be like a regular TV, right?
Yeah.
But then say you're watching something that's in vertical, the TV will adjust itself so it becomes vertical, and then you can watch it that way. So this is obviously a concept. I'm not sure if they want to put this into production, but knowing Samsung, they probably do want to put it into production, just because they always like take chances on stuff like this. But to me, it's just crazy that they saw like such a high level of stuff that's like in vertical, that they're like, you know what, we got to make it this. So like, even if you look like an app like TikTok, 90% of the stuff you watch on that is in vertical.
Yeah,
right?
all vertical.
So like, especially because all these new TVs that are coming out. So like, Samsung has all these apps on it, right? Like, you could go on Instagram, you could go on YouTube, you could go on Facebook. So now imagine having TikTok on your TV, and then when you open the TikTok app, your whole TV shifts so it's vertical, and you're watching it that way. So I guess this could be the future. I'm not sure, but it's interesting that they're trying this. It's definitely a different approach.
I don't see how. So like, filmmaking wise, I don't see how that is, conventional. Obviously, it's not.
Yeah.
Because there's no film that's gonna be like, vertically shot yet. Yeah. I guess, until some crazy person decides to do that.
From CES, it's this thing called the Samsung Bally. Okay, so this is what the
episode is
titled after. It's the personal robot.
Oh,
right?
okay.
So Samsung created this thing called the Bally. So it's this tiny little ball of a robot, right? So what this does is, it's basically like an at-home robot. So what you do is, when you leave the house, it'll be at home. It's always recording. So like, it's like, it makes sure like you can control it from your phone. So like, say you're out of the house and you want to see something in your other room, you can literally control this thing like a little toy car, take it into the other room, and then it'll like make sure like you can look around the room and stuff like that.
It looks like, I can understand how it would work. It has like gyroscopic precision, where like the two sides away from the center like roll like wheels almost, and like that helps it turn and move to the side, and like, they can navigate the rooms like that. Because I mean, I don't know how it would go up and down stairs. I don't think it could do that, can it? There's no way.
No, it can't.
Yeah, okay, so it stays on whatever floor it is.
Yeah.
Okay.
So obviously, everything being like smart home nowadays, like your bulbs, your doors, everything like that, this fits right into that smart home category, where like, say like you have a smart oven, right? For example, I'm not sure if that's real, but say you have one, and then you realize that you left it on or something. When you leave the house, you can tell this thing to turn it off, and it'll automatically turn it off by itself. So like, things like that is what it does. So I just find this interesting, because I wonder if this is what the future of household technology is. It's like like it says here, it's like a little companion.
But what would it help you do? Like, what would people want to use it for?
I guess just to like, maybe if you have pets, I guess it would be useful for people with pets to like go around and just make sure that they're all right, see what they're doing, stuff like that. But it's nothing like cameras can't do either.
Yeah. But I guess this is more like, like a more mobile version of a camera. So
like, it even says here that in the demo video, it makes adorable chirpy sounds as it zips around. So they're trying to make it like a pet, essentially. But yeah, I'm not sure if this would be like, if more things like this are gonna come out. But like I said, it tries a bunch of new stuff. So this is on their list too. So Drew said, "What are some of the wildest high school stories?" And then he says more than one for each person.
Okay. So I mean, I guess I could start. I feel like my high school stories.
I don't know what I'm gonna say to this.
My high school stories aren't like the craziest, I guess. I remember moments where like I would be playing. So this mainly happens in like gym class, because I feel like those are the most amazing moments. I really enjoyed like, trying really hard in gym, just because I was never part of a team or anything like that in school, right? So I'd say my best moments were when like I was set up for like a spike in volleyball, because like I would see the person get ready to set up the spike, and like I'd start my run up, and like they toss it in the air, and then I'd jump, and like I would just like look over the net and like see the other side, and I'd see the ball like falling down towards my hand. Like everything went slow motion, right? And like I would just like I would connect with the ball and then like slam it into the ground, and like no one could do anything to stop it, because no one in gym class volleyball is going to come up to block you, you know?
Yeah, well, in my school, gym class volleyball was like super competitive. It was like,
yeah, I mean,
very
like
serious.
a lot of people in my class were like a majority of them were like girls, and they typically didn't like try that hard. We had one person that did try hard, but they never like tried to block me, you know what I mean? They were part of the girls volleyball team, so they always like went for like the dive to save the ball, but they never like actually jumped up to block me.
Yeah.
So like that was like a crazy moment to me. There was a moment where I was playing soccer and I got fouled, and then like because I had like glasses at the time, the glasses like dug into my face. I still have a scar from it, I think. But then like when I got back to class, you'd see like part of my face was like just bleeding, and like I didn't know how bad the blood was, because I just thought like when I touched it the first time I saw blood, and like I was like, okay, I wiped it off, and then I wiped it again, there was no more blood, so I was like, okay, so I'm good. But then when I got to class, like the entire like side of my face was bloody, and like my teacher thought I got into a fight, and like I was just like, oh, I was playing soccer, and she's like, did you fight in soccer? And I'm like, no. And then she's like, she sent me to the bathroom to like clean up my face and everything, because like it was literally like all bloody. Everyone thought I got into a fight. Besides that, a wild story, like sort of not related to sports, would be like in class, right? So there was, in freshman year, I wrote on a desk, like I just wrote, hi, this is Black Flame, right? Because like that was my name on my hoodie, right? So I used to be in track and field, and like on the hoodie I put Black Flame, because that's what I thought like, was part of my name. And then like when I went back to that desk the next day, the person replied, hi Black Flame, this is, I can't remember the name, but like someone replied to it. And then like for the next week we were just writing back and forth on the desk. And then the moment we stopped was when the teacher realized that we were writing on the desk, and she's like, hi, this is my desk, can you please not write on it? And I was like, wow, okay. So like we never wrote again. But then like 3 months later, I'm wearing my hoodie, and then like that person saw me walking down the hallway, and I actually knew that person, and they're like, oh my god, you're Black Flame? And I'm like, yeah, I am. And they're like, I'm that person that was writing on the desk. And I was like, wait, what? And yeah, that was the craziest story. That's about it. That's all I can think of.
That's probably the craziest one, that last one.
Okay. But that's it. I can't think of anything else. What about you, Raj?
I don't know. It's hard to think of like crazy high school stories because it was so long ago now. So I don't realize, but it's been like 5 years. But like, I mean, one like really funny stuff. What I thought was funny is like, the teacher there was like, he was like a chill guy, like he didn't really care. So my friend, she had like, like she went to the bathroom, and then she was like texting me. She's like, dude, I'm going to Dunkin' Donuts. Do you want something? I'm like, what the? So like I thought about it, and she like went out the door, right? And went to Dunkin' Donuts. I was like, yeah, like I'll take some iced coffee, right? So she got iced coffee, and she's on the way back, and she's like, yo, like let me in from the side. I'm like, wow. So like I left the classroom, like pretending like I was gonna go to the bathroom, and then like I let her in. And then like we both walked into the classroom with like iced coffee, and the professor was like, the teacher was like, yo, like where did you get that? And I was like, yeah, I had it in my class, because it was the first class of the day. I was like, yeah, I had it in my locker, so I just went to go get it.
Amazing.
And like that, it wasn't like, it's just funny to me. It's not like crazy.
I mean, I did something like that in my senior year. So like in physics 2, after I was in AP Physics 2, and after we finished the AP Physics exam, like after that was over, the teacher didn't like have anything to do for us. So everyone in my class was like, oh, let's go to Dunkin'. And I was like, wait, what the fuck? And then I don't know why we were so like nonchalant about it. You wouldn't think like, honors or AP students would be like this, where they're like, yeah, let's just walk out of school, get Dunkin', like no one does that. So like we literally all walked out. I think there were about 19 of us. I think 3 people stayed back. But 19 of us walked out and got in people's cars and drove to Dunkin' Donuts, came back, and we walked through like the garage of the high school where like they have like students that work on cars, you know, where like they learn about cars and stuff like that. So we walked through there and walked into the building because the teacher over there didn't really care if we did that. But that's one thing that we did. And then like we all got sent to the principal's office as well because a gym teacher saw us and they were like, what is this? But the principal let us go because we had the valedictorian and whatever the second person is. What are they called? There's a
valedictorian?
Yeah, that one.
Is that the right
I think so.
pronunciation?
Yeah. So we had those two people in our class and he was like, we can't be like suspending them when their graduation is coming up. So we got away with it basically.
Yeah, you pretty much get away with everything when you're a senior. They don't really care.
Not in our school.
I guess one cool story, it's not like crazy, but it's like, so this is when I just graduated high school, right? So I was going into college, but this is that summer. So we used to play soccer all the time at JFK. Yeah. Right? So obviously we had like Islam FC, which is like our whole squad, and we were just playing, and then a coach came, and he had like a legitimate travel team that's played together, right? And he was like, yo, like, you guys are here, we're here, like, let's just play, like, a little game, because he wanted to, like, warm his players out. I'm not sure. He just wanted, like, practice. So he's like, oh, let's just play a game. So it was just us random, 11 people, like, almost a full field. It was not the full field, but it was right outside the 16 to the full side. So he was like, yeah, let's play a game. So we were playing against a legitimate travel team that, like, they pay the coach a lot of money. The players pay a lot to be in that team, right? And it's like they go to like different counties and different states to play other teams. So we're playing against them, and we actually didn't lose. So for me, that was like insane because we're like, damn, we're like really good as a team, even though this is a team where like kids train every day to play. They go around the country to play other teams, and we're just like some random kids that were playing at high school that were like, as a team, we're good enough to like not lose to them, you know? So I guess that was like, to me, that was cool.
Yeah. To be honest, Drew, if you're listening to this podcast, a lot of my stories that I would say are like wild or crazy or anything like that never really happened in high school. Like, even the stories that I told right now, like, I feel like they're subpar to everything that I've done because my life is a lot crazier than that. And like, you can see that in like the videos that we make on YouTube, or like the most recent video that Raj made on his side channel, like personal channel. But yeah, it's a lot crazier in life. Like school stuff, it's not crazy to me, especially my college life. My college life is even more boring than my high school life. I don't do I don't do anything besides I come back, stream, study, go back to college, come back, stream, study, stuff like that. I don't do any of that crazy stuff. I guess there hasn't been any moment that I remember. Oh, during hurricane, where like I saved this girl's life one time, sort of. I got hit by a car, I guess. Doesn't really matter. So Epic Flame asks, what's the best food you have ever eaten in your life so far?
Oh, that's tough.
There's a lot of good food in this world.
Because I don't like, so like when people, when like people ask like, oh, what is your favorite food? Like I never have an answer.
Yeah.
What
am I gonna say?
Different food.
Pizza? Like, can you really say that?
The best pizza I've ever had is in New York City. It's this place called Artichoke Pizza. Yeah, that Artichoke Pizza was the best pizza I've ever had in my life. Like we had like, so I got a pepperoni slice and a plain, and I was like, this is so good. It like the sauce was a little bit sweet, and it wasn't like super greasy, and it was just like the perfect blend. I don't know. It was like a good crispy slice.
How about this? I have a better way to answer it, to like address like our travel portion of this podcast. What's the best type of foods that you've gotten from like different countries?
Oh, this one's easy. So when we went to Amsterdam, I'm not sure if this is specific to Amsterdam, but there was this thing called a stroop waffle. So it was basically like two thin waffle pieces, and in between they have caramel, or they'll have something else. You could have caramel, you could have anything, but the one we bought it from, it was caramel. So it cost €1. So you buy it, see, it looks like this. This is the center of it, and it was just like the perfect amount of sweet. It wasn't like ridiculously sweet, and it was like hot when we ate it. And this was like the best. I didn't know this was a thing before I went there.
It's almost. Oh, you know what it is? I just realized it's a toaster strudel.
Yeah, but not really. Like it doesn't taste. It tastes so much better than that.
Okay.
That doesn't come anywhere near.
What about some? Okay, so you've been to India and England, I'll say. So what about those places?
So I mean, in India, the food trucks, the pani puri food trucks are always the best, right? But the problem with this is when you eat pani puri on the street, you like the chances of you getting sick are so high.
Yeah, because it's water based, which is like the biggest problem. Water from different countries is the biggest problem.
Yeah. So like it would be something like this where like they'll give it to you like that in like a small dish. They'll give you a couple of pani puris ready made.
Yeah.
And like it's really cheap, and this is one of the best type of food to eat, especially in India. Street food's always the best.
Yes.
It's just that.
So like street food wise, I'd say my favorite food would be vada pav from India. But for an entree that you get from like a restaurant, like an Indian restaurant, I'd say definitely chicken makhani. Like that's like without a doubt, like okay, if I go somewhere and I don't know what I'm gonna get that. I've also tried things like samosa chaat, which I do like as like an appetizer, but you're not like, you know, I feel like that varies from place to place, how they make it.
Yeah.
Besides that, the food that I had in New Zealand wasn't really like typically like New Zealand food. It was more South Indian because the family that I was staying with was South Indian.
Okay.
So
you had a lot of dosa.
Like no, not dosa, more like rice-based stuff. South Indian people have like rice-based foods all the time. Yeah. Like every food, they never made like roti or naan or anything like that. So like every food that I had was like some sort of curry, I guess that's what you would call it, and rice, and I'd eat that.
So Epic Flames said pav bhaji any day. So this, for people that are don't know what that is, it's essentially like the Indian dish where it's like they have curry. It's not like curry, but it's like a vegetable on the side, vegetable curry, and then you eat it with bread, and then you can also have like onions, tomatoes, and then you put lemon on it. So like even this, when you go to India on the street, is one of the. So this is my favorite Indian food. If I could eat this every day of my life, I would. It just tastes that good. So like, even when you go to India, this street food is amazing.
Yeah, I agree. Like I love eating this too, but I don't eat this like, you know, maybe once in a while, you know, because it's very, very like, I don't know what to call it, heavy.
Yeah, it's very heavy. Yeah, and all Indian food in general is pretty heavy. So
pani puri isn't though.
Yeah,
that's the one food that's like very light. Besides that, other places that I've tried food from,
I have fish and chips.
Oh my god, yes, from England, my favorite food would have to be chicken and chips.
Yeah.
Chicken and chips. They had this everywhere in Luton where we stayed was like, I swear, at every corner of the street, chicken and chips. And it was great.
It's like their McDonald's though.
Yeah, and like,
it'd be like 2 pieces of chicken. They'll give you some fries, which they call chips there.
On top of that,
they'll give you some curry sauce.
Yeah. So they give you sauces and you can like dip the fries into, and it tastes amazing. Besides that, I mean, we had Nando's. Some people say that Nando's is like bad over there, but I personally liked it. And another food that I liked that I've never got to try again after that was beans, cheese, and chips, which was something that one of my cousins brought, which is also like a street food, sort of like chicken and chips. Cheese and chips. And like, it looks so basic, but it tasted so good. Maybe that's just like the junk food side of me coming out. I loved it, honestly.
Yeah, it was good.
You had it too? Yeah,
when we went to England. Yeah, I definitely have tried this, but it's very good. They have a lot of So one thing I noticed about there is they have a lot of, rather than like a lot of McDonald's and stuff. Obviously, there's always a lot of McDonald's, but like they have a lot of local shops.
Yeah, they do.
Which a lot more than here. They have.
We don't have local shops here, which I wish we did. Honestly, I'd love to work at like a local small like family-owned store you know, and like sort of just like chill with them. You know what I mean? It's like, it's almost like going to another country in my opinion, because you learn their culture basically.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying? Like if I was working at an Italian restaurant and it was like an entire Italian family, that I feel like that would be great for like a
They have
experience.
I think it's New Jersey specifically that there's a lot of pizza places. So a lot of local pizza places.
Yeah.
So not like Domino's and Pizza Hut and stuff like that. But I'm not sure if it's a New Jersey, New York thing. But around here, there's like, if you want to go to a good local spot, pizza is probably your best option. There's so many. There's just around me, there's like probably 10 like local pizza places that you can't get anywhere else. So I guess that's like the closest thing we have to like what they have there. But they just have that for like every type of food, not just pizza. So I saw this, I don't know where it is, but I'll just say it. So I saw this question on Twitter. It was from MKBHT's Twitter.
If you were
put into the past, so say like 70, 80 years, what would you do to prove that you're from the future? Like, how would you do it? Because you can't, not assuming you don't take any technology from today. So how would you go about doing that?
So personally, I would take the simplest like event that I could think of, like something that no one would ever expect. So like first things first, I gotta find someone that knows me, right? So like let's say.
No, but it's just you. You're the only person.
So like
put 70 years back.
There's no like family or anything.
No family member, just you.
Okay, so then I need to find some like random person on the street and convince them that I'm from the past, right? That's what you're asking me? So
yeah, you gotta convince them that you're from the future.
Oh, from the future. My bad. So depending on where I am, there's had to have been like a special event that happened recently, right? So like let's say I'm in like 1913, right? Or right before World War 1.
Okay.
Then I could tell that person like, okay, yo, this person is going to get killed, assassinated, and then World War 1 is going to start.
Yeah.
Like tell them that. And then when it happens, I'm hoping that they would believe me, you know?
Yeah. But you don't think that could be like, they could take that as like propaganda or something? Because that was a big thing back.
Good point.
They could just be like, oh, this guy was like, he's the one that did it, because he's the one that told
that'd be terrible. Oh my god.
Right?
Okay, then I guess it would have to be like more science-based, right? Because I could prove a lot of things with science.
I think that's the biggest way to do it. It's like do something science.
So like prove something. I mean, that era still had like the basic knowledge of like physics and stuff like that. So I guess we can't do anything like that. But it would have to involve something like, I guess a cell phone. But how would I possibly manage?
But how would you explain to them that it's a real thing?
Yeah.
Be like, this guy's crazy.
Or like the internet, right? Because like making that type of stuff would be insane. Damn, this is tough. Thank you everyone for watching. We try to post the video every Tuesday. Follow us on our socials right up here. You can watch us live on twitch.tv/blackflame1412. And if you have any fan topics that you want us to talk about, be sure to leave them on the comments down below. Thank you so much.